Free state of Florida. Here for the Patriot Awards, a highlight of the year. Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. The collapse of the cryptocurrency exchange FTX is, even if you're not interested in cryptocurrency, a history-changing event. It may turn out to be the biggest single-day loss of assets in the history of money. Billions of dollars evaporated in just moments, and it's still not clear what happened to a lot of that money. It just disappeared. And as it did, it sparked a growing financial crisis across entire sectors of the economy, a disaster that quite possibly could get very worse very soon. But the story of the FTX implosion is bigger even than the global recession it may cause. It is the story of the complete and utter corruption of the people who run our country. The very people who should have been covering and regulating and reining in FTX and its 30-year-old founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, were instead profiting from the scam. Not just a few of them, nearly all of them. From the news media, paid off by Sam Bankman-Fried, to the leadership of the Democratic Party, also paid off by Sam Bankman-Fried, to the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC commissioner himself, Gary Gensler. They all knew that FTX was not a real company and that Sam Bankman-Fried was a fraud. And if they didn't know that, they certainly should have known that, because it was very obvious to anyone who bothered to pay attention. One of the few who did pay attention was a short seller called Mark Cohodes, who took one look at Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF for short, and recognized here is a con artist, obviously. Watch this tape, which aired on Hedge Eye TV, a small investment advice channel, back in October.
When anyone tries to pin SBF down on where he made his money, you can't get a cogent answer. Then you take into account that SBF is bailing out known Ponzi's and frauds in the crypto space. Everyone who's gone bankrupt or is a proven fraud. But nothing here fits. Everything reads like this thing is a complete scam. And I think this thing is dirty and rotten to the core.
So if that guy on a small audience investment channel could tell that Sam Bankman-Fried was a fraud, where was Gary Gensler of the SEC? And by the way, the tell in the sentence you just heard is that Sam Bankman-Fried couldn't explain where he got his money. Here you are, a 30-year-old billionaire. How'd you do that? If you can't tell us, then maybe that's a red flag, and you would think most investors would have recognized it. But for the most part, they didn't. Nor do they seem to notice the obvious incompetence of Sam Bankman-Fried's business partner / girlfriend, Caroline Ellison. Ellison was totally and obviously unqualified for the job she claimed to have. She had no track record of success at anything. She reportedly wrote online about her drug use. And then, on a podcast back in May, months before the collapse, Caroline Ellison just came out and admitted that she had no idea what she was doing. Watch this.
Do you think that you have been able to pull this thing off without your mathematics degree, or it has been the pillar of your trading activity?
Yeah, absolutely could pull it off without my math degree. I use very little math. When you start out as like an intern and you do something and accidentally lose, maybe $1,000 for your desk, you're like, oh God, like everyone's gonna hate me now, like this is terrible. And over time you have to get comfortable with larger and larger swings of money. Trying to think of a good example of a trade where I've lost a ton of money. Well, I don't know. I probably don't want to go into specifics too much with that.
Oh, I've lost a ton of money. No big deal. It's not mine. And no, there's no math here at the cryptocurrency exchange. Let's send her billions of dollars. Lost a lot of money that investors, including institutional investors, including individuals who are hoping to retire with that money, all gone because we don't do math. It's so outdated. But here's the amazing thing. None of this seemed to faze the biggest institutional investors. Sequoia, their entire job is to what? Assess risk. But it wasn't really about risk and reward. It was about something else. Earlier this year, Michael Grimes, a former spokesman for Bill Clinton, who seemed to be making an awful lot of money somehow in the financial world, approached Elon Musk, the world's richest man, with an investment offer on behalf of SBS. Sam Bankman-Fried wants you to invest. Now, Elon Musk didn't get to be the richest man on the planet by investing in things like that, so he apparently smelled BS and turned Grimes down. But in their exchange, which has since become public, Grimes multiple times told Musk that, by the way, Sam Bankman-Fried is a huge donor to the Democratic Party. Quote, major Democratic donor, Grimes wrote to Musk, second to Bloomberg in donations to Biden campaign. What does that have to do with the investment? It should be irrelevant, but that was the substance of the pitch. What is this exactly? Doesn't quite sound like a business. It sounds like a hybrid of some kind, and not in a reassuring way. Now, some of this was happening in secret, but a lot of it was happening right out in public, right in front of the news media. And of course, a lot of them knew Sam Bankman-Fried because he was sending a lot of the money. And when he wasn't, he was desperate for the publicity they could provide. Sam Bankman-Fried was on the cover of more magazines than Madonna. So they probably should have been asking questions about his business, but none of them did. They promoted him. Watch.
They call him the JP Morgan of crypto, right?
Yeah, the Michael Jordan of crypto, if you will. So why should you care about a floppy-haired, vegan, fidget-spinning crypto billionaire who occasionally sleeps on a beanbag chair?
During the so-called crypto winter, the 30-year-old CEO has been referred to as crypto's white knight.
JP Morgan of this generation, Sam Bankman-Fried's FTX. Is he the Jay Gould of our era, or is he the JP Morgan of our era?
I think it's yet to be determined. Yet to be determined.
Is he Vanderbilt?
He could be.
Is he Harriman?
Possibly.
Is he the credit mobilier scandal?
Is he Carnegie?
If he gives a lot of libraries, he is.
He's the JP Morgan of finance, of crypto. He's the Michael Jordan of crypto. But wait a second. Michael Jordan's not in crypto. He played basketball. Well, Sam Bankman-Fried's not really in crypto either. How are we all getting rich? Who knows? Don't ask questions. He's the JP Morgan. He'll be a trillionaire. So why were all these people pushing a scam that any normal person, even a person with no background in finance and just sort of a elementary understanding of profit-loss equations, could have seen was probably going to collapse in the end? Now, we're not sure. Stupidity clearly plays a role. So does the herd instinct. So all we can ask really is, who is benefiting from all of this? Well, we know that the Democratic Party benefited. As we told you, Sam Bankman-Fried donated $40 million to Democrats this cycle. That's more than any other donor apart from Soros. Then he pledged another $1 billion for the next election, $1 billion in one election, because that's democracy. He wasn't doing this in private. He was bragging about it. And then he was going on in public about how politicians, Democratic politicians, were begging him for money. Watch this.
So how do you find political fundraisers? They come to you directly? Is it easy to get to you and say, we need this money for this candidate? And what type of candidates do you tend to support?
Oh, yeah. Well, if I pulled out my phone here and just looked at my last 10 text messages, about half of them are going to be people asking for, politicians asking for contributions.
So why were you telling us this in public? And by the way, if you're shaking like a naked man in a snowstorm in the middle of an interview, maybe there's something wrong with you. Send that boy another $1 billion. So how substantial? Are we overstating this? We're making a partisan point that things collapsed. It was clearly a Ponzi. Are we trying to attack the Democratic Party now? No, it's actually justified. This guy was a major donor. According to the head of Citadel, defeating Donald Trump was literally on the balance sheet of FTX. Watch this.
FTX crosses into a zone that all of us are worried about. On the balance sheet of FTX is a line called Trump lose. And Sam was the second biggest donor to Democratic candidates.
I'm going to leave it to everybody else to draw their own conclusions about what you're saying here.
The other reporter says, but we're out of time. We can't go too deeply into that. Really? Let's go more deeply into it. It's pretty interesting. So, of course, politicians love the guy because he was just a cash spigot, and that's what they want most. But where were the regulators? Because there is a government that's supposed to be independent of office holders, a regulatory state that keeps Ponzi's from happening. Where were they? Well, Sam Bankman-Fried was himself invited to Washington to consult on crypto regulations. And then he posed for a picture with Maxine Waters, who's the head financial regulator in the Congress. And then the Washington Post, which is the hometown newspaper of government, did no reporting on his actual business. They just wrote a puff piece about how cool is it that the guy with funky hair who can't sit still and sleeps on a beanbag is getting super rich. How did he pull this scam? How did he do that? Well, he did it with religion. That's the quickest way to blind people. If they think you share a common faith, maybe they'll ignore it. And that religion is effective altruism. There are a lot of effective altruists. Maybe you haven't heard of that. It is a kind of religious movement. It's very popular in the tech world and the finance world throughout Silicon Valley and parts of New York. The idea is that you make money not because you're greedy, not because you have a bottomless pit inside you of need that can never be filled, but because you want to help other people and you want to help them in the most efficient way. You want to benefit the greatest numbers of people in the most efficient way. So that means effective altruists get to underpay their housekeepers. They get to stiff the waiter on the tip, and of course they needless to say they do. But that's okay because they're deeply concerned about abstract tragedies like global warming. So if nothing else, effective altruism gives you a moral cover as you rip off investors in order to live tax-free in splendor in some beachfront paradise, as Sam Bankman-Fried did and to this day continues to do. He's still in Albany in the Bahamas. So it goes without saying that Sam Bankman-Fried talked a lot about effective altruism, and in return, FTX enjoyed a very high ESG score, higher than Exxon, which gets your ambulance to the hospital and your plane in the air to see your kids and heats your home. Sam Bankman-Fried was considered a moral leader even as he was ripping off millions of people. But no one benefited long-term from FTX's collapse or will benefit more than government regulators. They are pointing to FTX and demanding more control over cryptocurrency and ultimately the end of the cash economy. Why do we think they're going to do that? Because they're already working on it. SEC Commissioner Hester Pierce said this week that the demise of XTS could be a, quote, catalyst for more regulation. So why should you worry about that? Well, because as we saw in Canada last year, crypto is a huge problem for governments. Governments can't control, ideally, cryptocurrency. You can't freeze someone's personal cold wallet with crypto in it if you don't like what they say. So what does this have to do with the collapse of FTX? Well, it turns out that Sam Bankman-Fried's girlfriend, Caroline Ellison, has a lot of connections to regulators. In fact, the biggest regulator of all in this country. Her father, Glenn, is an MIT professor who worked at that university alongside, drumroll please, Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, which is in charge of cryptocurrency regulation. FTX's general counsel used to work with Gensler on the Commodities Future Trading Commission. Now Gensler is about to get a lot more power. So this thing swells to unsustainable size and inevitably implodes. It collapses, and that collapse is used for a pretext to do what they've been planning to do all along. So it probably shouldn't shock you that right after FTX's collapse, every major bank in this country announced a new partnership with the New York Fed to establish a new digital currency. Oh, digital currency, the one they can regulate and control. Citigroup, Wells Fargo, MasterCard, HSBC, all working on a 12-week digital dollar pilot. The Fed describes this project as a regulated liability network. So what does this mean long term? Well, if they have control of your money because it's digital, you can't stash it under your bed. If they don't like what you say, they can turn it off and you're impoverished. In other words, this whole thing is a bigger scam even than it seems, and it was made possible by political sloganeering. And Sam Bankman-Fried, if nothing else, is not stupid, and he knows that well. As he put it in a message to a reporter the other day from his hideout in the Bahamas, the woke posturing is the most effective possible business ploy. And we're quoting, "I feel bad for those who get effed by it," he wrote, "by this dumb game we woke Westerners play where we all say the right shibboleths and everyone likes us." In other words, if you suspected all of this was a scam, all the moral posturing, all the lectures you get about how they're great and you're bad, this was all a way to blind you to the fact that there was a massive ripoff going on, you might be on the right track. Jonas Max Ferris is the founder of Max Funds. He joins us tonight. Doris Max Ferris, thanks so much for coming on. This story, it's almost impossible to summarize in a TV script because it seems to have threads that lead to almost everybody in authority on the planet. It's enough to make you into a conspiracy nut. Can you summarize what you think this means?
Yeah, it's so big that the guy who was in charge of the Enron collapse, which was very complicated, lots of pieces. This is much bigger and much more absurd and ridiculous than Enron, says the guy who's now running this company, who was the former Enron head, who was brought in to fix that mess. It's very complicated. I'm not going to be very simple. You kind of touched on it. It's basically a giant affinity fraud. If you want to say who he is, he's the Bernie Madoff of crypto. He pretended to be this woke world with the donations, giving money to certain specific politicians. It was to create an image of trust, kind of like how Bernie Madoff had a foundation that gave money to hospitals and charity, so you wouldn't think it was a fraud. And then regulators who already exist, we don't need new regulators, who would have had authority over some of these preposterous yield products that they had, wouldn't do anything. In fact, he was trying to direct the regulators to his competitor, Binance, who then saw that he was doing that, and he's the one who took out this company by causing a run on the bank, knowing that this guy never really had this money left because they were looting it, gambling it away into nothing, and it wasn't really there. He started the panic and crushed his competitor. That's basically what happened.
It's just I mean, I'm not really qualified to assess some of the business portions of the story, but I can certainly assess the media portion. So he was out there constantly saying, yes, I'm making billions, but it's not for me. I'm an effective altruist. It's really for other people. I'm doing this because I'm a good person. And that seemed to deflect any real media scrutiny.
Media and regulatory scrutiny, and a lot of the customer base liked his vibes and his, so he was appealing to a lot of different people, regulators, politicians, customers, and making everybody feel like your money must be safe because why is he on the cover of all these magazines? There's a lot of faith issues in crypto because, there was a lot of frauds this year. A lot of them collapsed. He doesn't want to be that one. The best way to do this, he was his own PR agent, basically, and was very effective at it by bribing the right people, giving the right donations, creating the right image of the genius altruist. And it was all really to run a swindle, it seems like. And I don't know how much of it was just gambling with the client money that went to nothing and then some looting at the end, or how much was all looting. We're never going to, well, hopefully we'll know the full percentages when this is all done.
It's an amazing story. We're going to obviously stay on it. Jonas Max Ferris, thank you so much.
Thanks.
So we've been telling you for the past 15 minutes that this was all very obvious, and any investor who paid attention would have known that there was something amiss here very clearly. Dave Portnoy is a sports guy. He's obviously the founder of Barstool Sports, sports media giant, online gambling giant, also an investor. He joins us on set now to assess. So that's really the question. Thank you, Dave, for coming. That's really the question. You are, I don't know how to describe your investing, but it's something you do on the side.
Yep.
But you're into it.
Yep.
So you're not like a trained expert.
Yeah, FTX was an advertiser of ours.
Exactly. But you're an enthusiast. Was this obvious to you that there was something weird going on?
No. I don't know how it could be obvious to anybody, a normal citizen. I mean, if you see Tom Brady pitching FTX on the Super Bowl, you're probably going to believe it's a legitimate thing. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. As the stories have come out in crypto, I'm not paying a ton of attention. There was articles, I think CoinDesk wrote it. The thing that's shocking to me, and I'm in the gambling field. We're rigorously regulated. Like, they know what I did 20 years ago.
Yes.
Everything. If I do one thing weird, I hear about it. There's companies writing articles. We knew this guy was in the Bahamas. Why? Because it's unregulated, living in basically a Paul and Morris penthouse with like 20 people who were all having sex with each other, running this, and it was well known. I mean, if somebody did that in the United States, and meanwhile, he's cavorting with politicians at the highest level of government, the fact he wasn't investigated, to me, just shows what a lot of this country is all about. People are just trying to make money. They're being dishonest. They're saying the right things to make money, and he's lining everybody's pockets. It wasn't obvious to me. But if you're meeting with Gensler and you're meeting with politicians, I don't know how in a million years they didn't know that. It was pretty obvious. It wasn't a I mean, I wasn't looking for it, but once you start going back, it's like, holy cow, how did they not know this? Again, contrast that with like what I go through because people don't like me, and it's night and day. I mean, it really is quite stark. So, no, not a normal person who is investing would ever know. Steph Curry, Tom Brady, it's the Miami Arena down here is FTX. A normal person got taken advantage of, basically. Right. And where's the government? For example, An offshore casino, they can't advertise in the Super Bowl. We can't take money from them. That's all illegal. Why was FTX legal? Why could they advertise? Who's regulating that? That to me is where the real big problem is. It's because the guy is spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to grease the right wheels.
It also seems like now that it's failed in this spectacular way, that failure will be used as a justification for massive regulation.
100%. And you mentioned it. He was the guy supposedly helping craft the regulation for future crypto, which is insane. Are you looking at his background at all to do that? It will be, because what you said, money wants to control the money. And if you do crypto right, I think in the long term, this will be good for Bitcoin, but it's hard to control. So I think a lot of people, politicians, whatever, looked at this guy, hey, if we partner up with him, we can make sure we have our hands in the pie and kind of control what's going on. Also, side note, these politicians who are deleting the photos with them, that's like the dumbest thing I've ever seen. What do you think? People don't know you took a photo with them? You delete them? It's out there. You could argue.
How hard is it to control photos once they're on the internet, Dave?
They're gone. I mean, they are gone. Listen, nobody knows more than me. Trust me. But that's part of it. I looked at what this guy was doing. It's like, I can't walk down the street if I hold a girl's hand. It's a story. What's Dave doing? This guy's. It's like a X-rated movie out in the Bahamas, and nobody cared. It's like, what are you doing? And I don't care about Judge, but nobody looked into it. They're just looking the other way, taking pictures, taking his money. He's, like you said, the number 2 donor for the Democrats. Not one word, not one peep. And to be honest, if this didn't fall apart, if the Binance guy, who's a savage, didn't do this rumor and probably create the run, nobody would ever know. He'd be the altruistic guy. Nobody's altruistic. All the crap everybody says, whether you're a politician, is for power, money most of the time. People want to get rich, and I trust the guys, weirdly like me, it is me. I want to make money. I want to spend money. I want to have a great life. This guy want to make money, give it away. No, you weren't. He took a loan for himself. He was paying for the penthouse through the company money. He was doing whatever he wanted, and nobody took 2 seconds to look. I talked to him, by the way, when they advertised. He was always a weird guy. Like this charm and all that stuff. No way. He was the least charming guy I've ever spoken. No, there wasn't like, oh my God, this guy's some sort of genius. Maybe he arbitraged with an MIT degree to make some money. But he wasn't some charming guy who charmed the pants off people. He couldn't charm anybody. You know how he charmed them? With his wallet, money, donations, and they looked the other way. There is no other explanation for that. I'm far more charming in a one-on-one sit-down than he is. And you know what? I end up at the blunt end of a hit piece every 2 weeks. That's because I'm not writing checks.
Do you think, I guess it's unknowable, but just having watched this for a while, will we ever really get to the bottom of what happened?
No. Listen, they say that he had this research firm, they loaned all the money, and then the Binance guy, CZ Binance, whatever his name, they were competitors. And it's all crypto, some of it's magic, but I don't know that we'll truly know what happened, because there's a lot of big players who probably lost a lot of money. The bankruptcy today, what they released is crazy, what they were spending money on. But who knows? I never think we'll know anything. I don't want to be some conspiracy theory when there's big money involved. I never think I'm getting a straight shake. Honestly, how can Gensler sit down with a guy who is living in a penthouse in the Bahamas with 15 people who are all having sex with each other, spending money on everything, and he's like, yeah, we're going to write the legislation with you. Honestly, how is that possible? I can't tie my shoe. This guy's doing that and getting away with it. It's like, come on to the White House. Let's sit down and, make some legislation. It's insane.
You need to spread some donations around, Dave Portnoy. That's call Maxine Waters and fund her next campaign. Dave Portnoy, what a great explanation. Thank you very much.
You.
So it's Nancy Pelosi Day. Her dominion over the House of Representatives has come to an end, and we're going to mark the occasion with a special tribute. One major city giving away $1,200 a month. Do you qualify for this stipend? Well, it all depends what kind of clothes you wear. We'll be back from Hollywood, Florida in just a minute. We're in the other Hollywood tonight in Florida for the Patriot Awards on Fox Nation. I'm proud to be here. Well, across the country in San Francisco, didn't think things could get weirder, but they have. The city has just launched a bizarre new guaranteed income program, but it's not for you. Jason Rance is our West Coast correspondent. He joins us tonight to explain. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Tucker. Mayor London Breed is tackling the homeless crisis one trans feminine butch demigirl at a time with a pilot program called Guaranteed Income for Trans People, also known as GIFT. And it gifts eligible San Franciscans $1,200 a month, no strings attached, for up to 18 months. But to be eligible, you have to be an adult and basically be homeless. It's for people earning under $600 a month. Like the title says, it's for transgender people, and the application reads like a parody. You're asked to give personal pronouns, which include the standards he, her, they, but also just noises like Z and Tay and Fay. Apparently those are pronouns. Then you're asked to provide your gender identity out of a list of 97 options, and you're not limited to just one. Some of the so-called gender identities, they're just adjectives like butch, femme, or aggressive. Others are life experiences like woman with a history of gender transition or man of trans experience, which I think just means you're a guy who accidentally hit on a trans woman at a bar. Plus, you're told you can click gender F word. That's also listed. There are some gender identities I think we can all say, I don't know if anyone knows what these things mean. They include gender outlaw, gender creative, brother boy, mashoga, gray gender, which I did look up. It means you show ambivalence towards gender. And then, of course, you have to give your sexual orientation, which can include scoliosexual, aromantic, and simply kink. They even use an anti-gay slur, the other F word. The more marginalized you are, the higher the likelihood you are of getting chosen for this. They ask if you're a sex worker or a migrant worker, and of course they ask you about your race. In addition to the monthly income, you get gender inclusive care and case management. Applications open this past Tuesday. If anyone's interested, you can apply online through December 15th. I hear if you identify as Two-Spirit, you get double the monthly income, so we'll see.
No one thinks this is funny except you and me. It's like, I don't know. Jason Rance.
It's insane.
So the details are the best. You're a detail man. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Republicans, we learned last night, will control the House of Representatives come January, and that means that 82-year-old Nancy Pelosi will not be the Speaker of the House anymore, no longer third from the presidency. Today she announced she will not seek a new leadership role in the new Congress.
Thank you very much. With great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress. For me, the hour's come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect. And I'm grateful that so many are ready and willing to shoulder this awesome responsibility.
Well, obviously this moment calls for a Pelosi tribute. We could have gone hours. We have that much tape, but we got it down to just a few moments. Here are just a few of her greatest hits.
To be clear, you're not taking any arrows out of your quiver. You're not ruling anything out.
Good morning. Sunday morning. And as a Catholic, I resent your using the word hate in a sentence that addresses me. I don't hate anyone. I was raised in a way that is a heart full of love, and always prayed for the president. With all due respect, and you know we've known each other a long time, you really don't know what you're talking about. Just when you think you've seen it all, the children will pay for the president's wall. He comes in with doggy-doo on his shoes, and everybody who works with him has that on their shoes, too, for a very long time to come. Ireland's sorrow and pain is now the Ukraine, and St. Patrick's name is now Zelensky. We do not say open sesame. We say open Biden. That's our magic word. True. Open Biden. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. We're going to miss her. Will Cain is the host of Fox and Friends on the weekend, also the host of the terrific Will Cain podcast. He joins us on set. Will Cain.
Good morning.
Good morning. You know, she's being replaced by Fetterman, so it's kind of on balance. What will you miss?
It's the end of an era. Truly, it's the end of an era. We should mark this moment in history. We have been governed by the most liberal district in the country for 20 years, and it truly ends an era in Washington, D.C. What's your favorite moment? You played so many, Tucker. It could be when she shows off her fancy Sub-Zero fridges in the middle of a pandemic, her favorite ice cream, when she gets her hair done, when she shuts down small businesses. For me, it's what you just showed. It's, have you ever listened to the incoherent, half-sentence ramblings put down in a transcript? Because it's truly remarkable. I'm sad, while it might be the end of an era, you point out there's ready people to pick up that baton. Between Joe Biden and John Fetterman, we have a long future ahead of us of incoherent, half-fragment thoughts.
My favorite was when she said, I'm not a hater. I've known Pelosi a long time. I don't think she was a hater. She became a hater, a real hater, like an actual hater, and put people in jail. And it's scary.
Do you remember in Charlie Wilson's War the scene in the sermon about what comes next? We'll see. Be careful what comes after the dictator, the tribal leader. What comes next? We will see. Be careful, because while Nancy Pelosi was the most liberal member of Congress for much of her career, today she's a moderate. Today she is establishment, and those that are ready to step into her shoes should really terrify you. What's
such a smart point? Could it get worse than Governor Cuomo in New York? Yeah, it could. It can always get worse. Will Cain, that's such a wise point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Well, not a lot of people are working. You're hearing of people quiet quitting, posting TikToks at work, and not doing a lot else. Why is this happening? Mike Rowe is the man we go to on all questions related to work and life, for that matter. He's got some ideas on how to fix it. We'll be back from Hollywood, Florida in just a moment. No, that's such...
Welcome to Fox News Live. I'm Matt Finn in Los Angeles. Just completed autopsies confirm 4 University of Idaho students found murdered in an off-campus home were stabbed. Mystery surrounds their deaths early Sunday. Police say they don't have a suspect or a murder weapon. The killings have shaken Moscow, a small college town with just 25,000 residents. And here in Los Angeles, a 22-year-old man suspected of plowing his vehicle into dozens of LA area police recruits is facing attempted murder charges. Investigators say he struck the recruits while they were running. 25 cadets were injured, 5 of them critically. And the governor of New York declaring a state of emergency for western parts of the state. Buffalo and surrounding areas are getting hit hard by a lake-effect snowstorm. Some parts could see up to 4 feet of snow. I'm Matt Finn. Now back to Tucker Carlson tonight.
Welcome back. Well, not a lot of people are working right now in the United States, and that's a big change. That's why maybe you have to use the drive-thru because no one's inside the restaurant. But not only is the way we work changing, our attitudes toward work are changing. And a lot of people seem to have contempt for work all of a sudden. Signs are everywhere. You probably noticed them. Mike Rowe has spent a life thinking about work. He's host of How America Works on Fox Business Network. He joins us on the set of the Patriot Awards. Of course, the immortal host of Dirty Jobs. And I think our most frequent and popular guest. Anyway, thank you so much for coming back.
Oh,
Mike
thanks
Rowe,
for having
obviously
me.
you have noticed the change in attitude toward work. Some people sort of mocking the idea of work. What's your response to that?
Yes, so I'm wrong about as much as I am right.
Yep, me
50-50.
too.
And it's for that reason I hate to say I told you so out loud ever.
Yep.
But for 15 years, my foundation has been talking about this slow sort of unraveling of what we loosely call work ethic, whatever that means.
Yes.
Right? And now, between Nick Eberstadt's work, an economist who's really drilled down on it, and I mean, last week there was an article in the New York Times called something like "How to Combat the Assault on Modern Work." And I thought it was going to be an article about coal miners or crab fishermen or, big tough jobs where the danger is real. It wasn't. It was an article about everything from paper cuts to the non-existent pet bereavement policies that are being deemed harsh. I'm not making it up. And so we're in a place where 7 million able-bodied men are not only not working between the ages of 25 and 54.
7 million?
7 million able-bodied men are not only not working, they're affirmatively not looking for a job. That's never happened in peacetime, ever. And economists like Nick Eberstadt take a dim view of it. They're worried, and they're trying to inject that into the conversation at a time when we're still looking at the unemployment number as the true harbinger of what's really going on. But it's not. In his view, it's a Depression-era artifact. We're just looking at the wrong thing. We're looking at not what it means to have a bunch of people unemployed, but what does it mean to have a bunch of opportunity that nobody gives a damn about? That's a different conversation, and it's complicated to have because while that dynamic is clear and present, so too is the fact that a lot of big companies in Silicon Valley are going to lay off a lot of people. And now you're going to have a bunch of people who aren't trained for the jobs that do exist, sort of competing with people who have affirmatively taken themselves out of the workforce entirely, and who, final point, I asked Nick, what are they doing? What are they doing with their time, these able-bodied men?
Yes, good question.
On average, over 2,000 hours a year on screens.
So they're just totally hypnotized by digital world.
They're out. They're out.
So at some point, the pilot shortage, for example, well known, one of the reasons it's hard to get your plane on time or the cost is going up is because there aren't enough pilots, but that's true for a lot of different jobs. So, like, when does it start to grind to a halt?
Well, you know, pilots get the press because it's the pilot.
Right.
But when you really follow the delays down, you'll find it in the mechanics.
Yes.
You'll find it in the flight attendants. How many airports have you been in when the crew simply couldn't make it to the next plane?
Yeah.
It's because they're working with 70% of the workforce they had 3 years ago. You know, 4 million fewer people are in the workforce today than before the lockdowns, and 4 million more jobs have opened up. It's almost a perfect mirror image, and the reflection is kind of hideous.
And it's just sad, because work is meaning, as you have spent your life showing. Micro, the great Micro. Dirty Jobs, back. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the biggest stories of the midterms is what happened in Florida, right here, Miami-Dade County. Long a Democratic stronghold. Republicans flipped it. What exactly happened? The mayor of Miami joins us next. We'll be right back. We're back in Hollywood, Florida, Miami-Dade County. Probably the most dynamic place in the United States. More money has moved into Miami-Dade in the past couple of years, probably than any place in the history of the country in a shorter time. And it's long been a Democratic stronghold. Suddenly, it's not a Democratic stronghold. It seems like a Republican place. In 2018, Ron DeSantis lost Miami-Dade by 20 points. Last week, he won by more than 10 points. Marco Rubio won by 9 points. Huge flip. Francis Suarez is the now famous mayor of Miami and joins us on the set. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for coming on. There are so many things happening in Miami that it takes a much longer conversation than we have.
For sure.
So just address, if you would, address the political swing that we just saw. What is that?
Well, if you take it back even one more election, President Trump lost to Hillary by 30 points. So now from 30 to plus 10, plus 12, that's a 40-point delta.
In 6 years.
16 to to 24 for 22. So I think it's our policies that are working, right? We're keeping taxes low. We've lowered taxes in Miami to the lowest level in our history. We're keeping people safe. We didn't get into this nonsense of defunding our police. We support our police officers. We've increased funding for police. And we're on the precipice of having one of the lowest homicide rates we've had in our history. And then we've leaned into innovation and created high-paying jobs. We're number one in the nation in wage growth. We have a 1.4% unemployment in the city of Miami. So we're also the happiest city in America and the healthiest city in America. So you know, it's
but as a political matter, all of that is, and it's very noticeable when you go there.
Yeah.
But all of that would suggest it would get more liberal. So when Montana had a lot of rich people move in, it went left. Miami's had a ton of rich people move in and went right. What?
Well, we talked about this. You know, people were afraid that the migration to Miami would cause it to return more blue. And I said, listen, my parents are exiled from their country of birth, which is Cuba.
Yeah.
Nobody is taking a boat back to Cuba.
True.
I mean, nobody wants to re-implement Cuba's failed policies here in the United States. And I really believed in my heart the people that were coming here did not want to re-implement the failed policies that they were leaving. And I think the last election, this midterm was proof of that.
So would you consider, if like a lot of finance people moved in and tried to move it left, just sending them keep going to Cuba, the extra 90 miles?
Just keep going. The boat will take you all the way over there if you want.
What's up? I mean, tell us really quick, the crime rate still as low as it was?
Yeah. So just to give you a sort of context, right? In the 1980s, during the worst years, the cocaine cowboy years, they call it, we had 350 homicides. Now, 40 years later, we're obviously more populated than we were back then, and we have 43 for the year, not for a weekend, for the year.
It's an amazing story that has not got enough attention from us. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Francis Suarez, Mayor of Miami-Dade. We'll be right back. You can stream the Patriot